I'm Shankaran. Okay, meet you again for the next video on the CISSP series, Introduction to Information Security. Okay, the foundations of information security. Now, there are terms that we actually saw on the last video, and this is something, there are a few more terms that we need to understand. Trust me, all these terms, okay, and what we actually saw yesterday, okay, on the previous video, okay, so they are all veritable base for the information security. You do certified data protection officer from BCIA, or you do CISO from BCIA, or you do CISSP, CISA, okay, whatever security related certifications that you actually do, okay, in fact, which is more like a theoretical, like security plus, etc. Okay, so all these things for all this particular training, okay, so what we saw yesterday, the previous video and this particular video is veritable base. If you understand what we discussed in the previous video and this video, okay, it's going to set your foundation for the complete cyber security or information security or data security, whatever you're going to call it as. Okay. The objective for everything is to secure your data. Data follows the security. Sorry, security follows the data, and privacy follows your personal data. Due diligence. Okay. Due diligence is a gap analysis. Okay. Now, you are a security consultant, you are going to an organization to implement the information security, and you need to know what is there, what is actually not there. Okay, if you look at the NIST CSF, okay, what is your target profile, what is the current profile, okay, so you need to do the gap analysis. That is actually called as a due diligence. Okay, so you have to do a due diligence. Whenever you do a due diligence, you find there is actually a gap, then you need to follow the due cap. Okay, for example, okay, so organization requires you're a security consultant and you're doing a due diligence. You find that the firewall is not there, and firewall is necessity for the organization. I'm saying this with the reason because there's one of the companies where I implement ISO 27001. It's an application development company. They don't access the internet, and nobody access their organization's asset from outside the network. Okay, the entire organization was actually working on work group. They're not on a domain. Okay, it's a beautiful company. Okay, so they actually don't need an internet access at all. So the internet was not there. That means when there is no perimeter as such to access something outside from outside to inside, you don't need a firewall. They did not have a firewall. Okay, and the guys cannot install anything on their workstation because there are the restrictions. Not everybody, the local admin or domain admin access is restricted to only one person. Okay, and then he just creates a user account. Okay, they for the developers, etc. Now the organization was working in such a way that they don't need the internet access and they don't do a remote work at all. So no firewall required. But all the organizations might not be like this. They might require a firewall. So whenever you're doing a due diligence and you actually find that okay, there is a security control that is missing, okay, and that is necessity, okay, and then you need to actually putting in that control is actually called as a due cap. So you find the firewall is not there of the due diligence, and you're deploying the firewall is actually a due cap. When you do a due cap, okay, you will also ensure that continuously you need to check the firewall rule reviews. That is called as a due diligence. So let's say you find that there is no antivirus in it, and you're putting an antivirus. When you do a due diligence, no antivirus. You are putting an antivirus. There's a due care. When a moment you install the antivirus, you need to do what is called the gap analysis. Okay, like updating the signatures for the antivirus. That becomes a due care. So the person auditing it, okay, he is doing a due diligence to find whether the antivirus signatures are updated. Same thing holds good for your operating system patches, okay, application patches, be it security related or be it performance related or bug fixing, whatever it is. Okay, so you need to follow the due diligence and due care as actually a cycle. Okay, in fact, thanks to Marina Varghese, so she was my CISP student in US. So we had a very good discussion about which one starts first. Okay, so is it a due care and due diligence? Due diligence actually start first. Okay, in the cycle, then it goes to never-ending cycle. Okay, gross negligence. If you don't follow the cycle of due care and due diligence, okay, you have what is called as a gross negligence. Believe me, you are an let's say your organization based out of Europe, UK, or the mainland Europe, or let's say you are in Saudi Arabia, let's say you are in Malaysia, wherever you are. Now you have been practicing the security control implementation, indeed, okay, up to the best practices in the world. Okay, now the due care, due diligence, okay, all these things have been happening regularly, and you are ensuring that your environment is free from any of the attacks. But still, there is actually a component called as a zero-day attack. Okay, in the sense like zero-day attack can happen to your organization anytime. It's a 0 day. Okay, the first time it's happening to your organization. Okay, for any organization in the world, is actually called as a zero-day attack. So when you're facing a zero-day attack, okay, supposedly the personal data is all exposed, you have to report to the supervisory authority, and the supervisory authority comes to your premises, they do an audit. Okay, they see that you have done a due care and due diligence properly, but there's a zero-day attack. Okay, in this case, okay, you might be spared. Okay, there's no penalty that they're going to levy on you. Okay, no, you don't have to pay a penalty because you have done everything properly. Okay, you have followed the procedure, due care, due diligence, the internal audits have been there, everything is up to the mark. Okay, so that is an advantage of following the due care and due diligence. Due care and due diligence comes under the security operations. Okay, we have separate domain on CISSP for security operations. Gross negligence is not following the due care and due diligence cycle, or you're not very serious about it. That might lead to an attack. Okay, so most of the attacks that actually happen in the world, okay, so it's because of the unpatched system. Sometimes patching the system might lead to an attack. Right? The CrowdStrike that happened recently, okay, patching the system might lead to an attack. So we actually don't know, okay, what's going to cause an attack. So all we need to do is to follow the proper change management process. Okay, test it, justification, implementation plan, test plan, rollback plan. Okay, so these are four critical components of a change required. You follow it, and after the testing only, you will be ensuring that you will deploy on the production. Now, what's the other one? Enticement and entrapment. Okay, both are attraction. Okay, now what is an enticement? Enticement is you don't know who the attacker is going to be, or you're not targeting the attacker. Okay, so you're going to have the honeypots. The honeypots, honey net, honeypot on the cloud or virtual environment is actually called the honey net. Okay, so the honeypots and honeynet are purposefully vulnerable system on the production network to ensure, okay, the hackers, when they browse through the, let's say, Shodan.io, okay, you can actually find the honeypots on Shodan, and they may put their hands on your system. Okay, you have to warn them, saying that there's a honeypot, do not come back, or otherwise I'll block your IP. That's what usually happens. If you look at the Shodan.io, okay, and if you type the honeypot, there was a lot of honeypot that are getting displayed, and you could see there's a lot of ports that are open, but they'll warn you saying that the honeypot don't come to us. That is enticement. What is entrapment? Entrapment is very similar, but entrapment, you are actually targeting, okay, the victim, basically. Okay, I'll tell you something. You are conducting a bug bounty program, and people are playing the bug bounty program, and suddenly you are catching hold of few people and say that, okay, you hacked onto my system, okay, and then I'll file a legal suit against you. In entrapment, okay, it might not hold good legally, but enticement is something you cannot catch the hacker in enticement, but you can block their IP. Okay, so in that case, it's actually allowed. Okay, but enticement and entrapment are subject to scrutiny. You might think it is an enticement, but it could lead to an entrapment. Okay, so we should be extremely careful in following this enticement and entrapment. Now, the other three terms are segregation of duty or conflict of interest. Okay, segregation of duty. Duties are being done to ensure conflict of interest doesn't actually happen on the organization, okay, or in the environment. Okay, maker checker model, Brewer Nash model, Chinese wall model. We are going to jump into the security engineering and architecture, the domain. Okay, and then we'll also discuss about the segregation of duty and conflict of interest. Okay, maker checker model. The guy who's going to approve cannot be the requester. The requester cannot be the approver. It's called the maker checker, especially when it comes to the financial transaction. Okay, and then what is the dual control? Two people have to get involved, okay, to implement something. Okay, now in India, Tamil Nadu, there is actually a city called Dindigul. Okay, Dindigul is famous for their dual locks. Okay, so centuries and centuries they have been manufacturing locks with two keys. Okay, two keys have to be used, okay, to lock and then unlock. Okay, so in the ancient temples, 1,000 years, 2,000 years old temple, what's going to happen is the head of the temple, okay, and the head priest, okay, head of the temple will have one key, the head priest will have the other key. They both have to join together, okay, to lock the temple at night. They both have to join together to open the temple in the morning. Okay, that's actually called the dual control. Dual control, you know who the other person is. Other classic example is the bank locker. You will have one key, the other key for the locker is going to be with the bank manager. Okay, so it's called a dual control. Two people have to join together to initiate a transaction. What is the split knowledge? Split knowledge is very similar to the dual control, but split knowledge, you don't know who the other person is. Okay. In the year 2002, 3, 4, I was working for Standard Chartered Bank, and we had an application called global password management system. Okay, so it's again password management system where the password for the privileged accounts are all vaulted in there. Okay, and if you want to fetch the password to solve an incident, SEV1, SEV2 incident, P1 incident, etc. You will provide the incident reference number. You will fetch the password, and you will use the privileged account. And after that, if you want to lock it, there'll be one person from Chennai who will be putting in first one half of the password. Other half of the password will be keyed in by somebody from Kuala Lumpur. So they both mutually do not know each other. So they both have to join together, okay, to get to know the password, which is impossible. Okay, so it's at any point of time, the password for a privileged account is not known to anybody, or at least the complete password is not known to anybody. Okay, if you want to fetch the password, you have to provide an incident reference number, change your service request number to fetch the password. Okay, now security. Okay, I always say the security is best implemented only with ISO 20K. Okay, you have to follow the service management system. With the service management system, you get the metrics. Okay, from the metrics, where manageability becomes easy. With the manageability, you can optimize. What cannot be measured cannot be managed. What cannot be managed cannot be improved. Okay, the NIST CSF, current profile, target profile. Okay, the maturity, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Okay, the NIST CSF can be achieved only if you are going to implement the ITIL or ITSM or ISO 20000, which is certifiable standard. Okay, that's all for today from CISSP. Okay, wait for the next video on CISSP. Join me for the beautiful web series or podcast series. Okay, for CISSP training and certification. Cheers, then. Bye. Thank you.